UN Chief Ban Ki-moon sets up a high-level advisory panel to jumpstart financing for developing nations to battle climate change. The president releases his economic report, Inside, a plan for a clean energy future. And state energy regulators will soon tell the feds what they want from Washington.
From the Energy News Center in Washington, D.C., this is the Energy Report with Susan McGinnis.
Good afternoon, I'm Susan McGinnis. Thanks for joining us for the Energy Report. Promising to kickstart funding for developing nations to combat climate change, the UN Secretary General today announced a high-level advisory group on climate change financing. Emphasizing the need for rapid action, Ban Ki-moon announced the launch of this group on climate change financing to be co-chaired by UK Prime Minister Gordon Brown and Ethiopian Prime Minister Meles Zenawi, and comprise also various heads of state, heads of central banks, and other experts on development issues. The group, according to Ban, will mobilize financial resources that were promised at December's climate talks in Copenhagen. The mission to jumpstart financial resources and develop plans to scale up financing for developing nations to combat climate change, both short and long term. The goal, $100 billion in financing a year by 2020 from public and private sources, all aimed at adaptation, mitigation, technology development, technology transfer, and capacity building in developing countries. The Secretary General expects the group to have some proposal ready by the May-June UNFCCC meetings and with final recommendations issued before the next Conference of Parties in Mexico in December. The White House has released its economic report. It's where the president lays out his plan for the nation's economy. In the report, President Obama calls clean energy transformation essential. The report points to last year's Recovery Act as an example of the administration's commitment to clean energy. The economic report lists 56 projects and tax incentives totaling more than $90 billion, while only $5 billion of those have actually been spent. The report also re-emphasizes the White House goal of eliminating fossil fuel subsidies. In the report, the White House estimates the cutting of the fossil fuel industry's tax breaks will amount to more than $44 billion in revenue in the next decade. And the White House reaffirms its commitment to cap-and-trade legislation. Putting a price on carbon was something left out of the president's 2011 budget, but it reappears in this report. The president praises the American Clean Energy and Security Act passed by the House, and it points out that a utility-only cap-and-trade system would cost more in the long run. The report says cap-and-trade legislation has to include manufacturing, or it will be twice as costly to the economy and not achieve desired emissions reductions. Hundreds of state energy commissioners descend on Washington next week to talk about pressing energy concerns facing states. This is the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners' annual winter meeting. This year's meeting features a number of assistant secretaries from the Energy Department and also EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson. NARUC spokesman Rob Thormeyer says the meeting will involve more federal officials than it typically does.
Whenever we meet in Washington, it's easier to get the federal speakers because we're here. And I think in the case of, like, we have DOE, for example, they have a very great presence at this meeting, and as you know, there was a lot of grants in the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act targeted at state commissions and energy efficiency and transmission planning, and so there's been a lot more coordination, I think, between the feds and the states, just given what's been going on. I think it does point to a stronger relationship between the two, but I also think it shows that we're going to have our differences, but we understand each other. We want to keep the dialogue open.
And for a deeper look at what is in store at those meetings, you can check out Clean Skies' Dee Bombani's full report on our website right here at cleanskies.com. There's a new investigation into the embattled climatic research unit at Britain's University of East Anglia. The school says it's examining published papers from scientists at the Climate Change Nerve Center whose stolen emails set off that furor. The Vice Chancellor, Trevor Davies, says in a statement on the university's website that while CRU papers were peer-reviewed, it may need further examination of the science behind them. He says it is in the interest of all concerned that there should be an additional assessment considering the science itself. The university did not say when it will complete the probe, but already a member of the investigative team was forced to step down. Philip Campbell, editor-in-chief of the journal Nature, quit after it was revealed he defended the CRU scientists in an earlier interview with the Chinese state radio. Oil prices today fell after an EIA report showed rising inventories. The report, coming out late because of the severe northeastern weather, said that crude oil stocks rose 2.4 million barrels last week, more than 1.5 million more than were expected. Meantime, natural gas prices rose after that inventory report showed stockpiles down more than analysts expected, thanks to the weather hiking demand. Oil settled the day at $74.13 a barrel, down $1.15. Natural gas closed up 8 cents to $5.47 per thousand cubic feet. Earlier, I talked with Michael Roberts, lead energy analyst at energy management firm Pronova, about whether or not these numbers reported by EIA for natural gas were what was expected.
It was essentially reported where it was expected, just under 200 BCF for this particular week. And one of the things that we like to do at Pronova is keep things in perspective, meaning the numbers on a given week can be scary. We've had 3 reports this year already that have been over 200 BCF withdrawals. One thing to keep in mind is that 1 week does not make the whole season. And to put it in broader perspective, if you have 7 weeks left in the winter, which we do through the end of March, right now we would have to have a withdrawal average of about 120 BCF per week in order to get to a 1350 level, which is still a very comfortable level. And as we get to 1350, do we think that that's achievable? Well, the reality is 5, 10, and 15-year withdrawal averages for the last 7 weeks of winter are under 100. So it's not very likely, even with the colder than normal temperatures that we're experiencing.
And you can watch my full interview with Michael Roberts right here on the website at cleanskies.com. Geothermal energy capacity grew 6% last year in this country. A new report out from the Geothermal Energy Association says it's largely due to 6 new geothermal plants coming online in the U.S., adding 176 megawatts of capacity. Total online capacity is nearly 3,200 megawatts as of last August. The group says geothermal also added 750 full-time jobs, more than 2,800 construction jobs, all thanks to roughly $800 million in investment in the technology in the past year. 144 new geothermal plants are under development, could bring 7,000 megawatts of new baseload geothermal power in the next few years. SunPower of California is buying solar power plant developer Sunray of Italy for $277 million. The deal is SunPower's 4th acquisition in just more than 3 years and allows the company to further expand into Europe. SunPower has installed more than 200 megawatts of solar generating plants in Europe, while Sunray has 1,200 megawatts of solar farms being developed in Italy, France, Israel, Spain, the UK, and Greece. The Oregon House voted to rein in energy tax credits that have helped power Oregon's wind industry. The measure now goes to the Senate. It is expected to pass there. Investigations by the Oregonian newspaper portrayed the tax credits as out of control and in some cases misspent. After the newspaper report, Governor Ted Kulongoski agreed to shave the subsidies. The measure is expected to save the state government more than $50 million during the current 2-year budget and more than $500 million in the next few years. Well, you may remember the movie Who Killed the Electric Car, about GM pulling the plug on the EV1 back in 2003. Well, the director, Chris Payne, was in Indiana today looking at an electric delivery van being designed by Bright Automotive. Indiana is becoming a leader in the electric vehicle development, with another car called the Think soon to be built there. Payne is in town shooting a sequel to the 2006 movie.
It turns out that Indiana is a big center for the rebirth of the electric car. In fact, some of the engineers working in Indiana worked on General Motors' EV1, which is the subject of our first film. I think America's been ready for an electric car for a long time. It's just we've never had the ability to buy one.
And Payne's new movie, The Revenge of the Electric Car, is due to be released in 2011. Let's take a look now at what is happening in energy around the Beltway on Tuesday. 8:30, the 2010 NARUC Winter Committee meeting and National Electricity Forum, where federal and state officials will talk about regulatory issues including smart grid, federal-state cooperation, nuclear waste, fuel diversity, and more. That's at the Renaissance Washington Hotel. That is the Energy Report, and now have a nice long holiday weekend if you're getting one. We'll see you again Tuesday with the latest energy news. For any suggestions or comments about our programming on Clean Skies News, you can find us at contact@cleanskies.com. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook too. From all of us here in the Energy News Center, good night.